We're glad to have the fabulous Pamela Geller. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to the battlefield. Welcome to the war. What happened today is not extraordinary. What happened today is not exceptional. What happened today best illustrates what's happening and why I wrote this book. The very idea that a human rights activist dedicated to freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience, and individual rights would be canceled by a hotel that hosts Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who's promised the annihilation of the tiny Jewish state of Israel, who entertains at the Hyatt in New York, would cancel me in caving to this leftist Islamic alliance is indicative of how very bad the war is. Worse is how few are aware of it. I mean, Americans know there's something wrong, you know, like they're Helen Keller and someone moved the furniture. But there is so much deception. There is so much propaganda. There's so much disinformation that you need glasses to see what's happening. There is a war on the truth. And what is truth? Truth is the recognition of reality. A is A. And why is it so important to silence my voice? To silence Robert Spencer's voice, Noni Darwish's voice, Ayaan Hirsi Ali's voice, Wafa Sultan's voice? Because it's important that the truth be kept from you. And yet all you have to do is look around and see that this is a war in the information battle space. This is a war of information. And all the bullets and the bombs and the bloodshed comes as a result of what happens in this war. And they have in their arsenal the most powerful weapon of all, big media. It's the reason why Obama was elected. It's the reason why you don't know what's happening. But I will describe to you in brief detail the stealth jihad. The mosquing of the workplace, for example, imposing Muslim prayer times on union contracts, forcing non-Muslim workers to lengthen their day. That's wrong. That's imposing Islam on the secular marketplace. You have a company like Heinz, the ketchup company, by the way, who's been enormously generous to their Muslim workers. Not only do they have Muslim prayer rooms, they have Muslim prayer rugs, but they're being sued. Why are they being sued? They're being sued to stop the line. Stop the line for Muslim prayer times. Now, understand something. In Muslim countries, they don't stop the line. In Iran, they don't stop during the workday to pray. They pray before work, they pray after work. Why? So why do it here? It's to impose Islam on non-Muslims. You see the taxi cab drivers that won't pick up fares, that have alcohol, that have seeing eye dogs because dogs are dirty, dogs are filthy. You see the U.S. Treasury Department. The U.S. Treasury Department giving seminars in Sharia finance a week after we nationalized some banks. Now you'll say to me, what's wrong with Sharia finance, Pamela? I'm glad you asked me that question. It has to be halal, which means investing in certain industries is forbidden. Pork, alcohol, tobacco, and some forms of entertainment. Well, those are whole American industries. Do you want to use your taxpayer dollars to starve whole American industries? There is the mosquing of the public schools, where they have prayer spaces for Muslim children. They don't have it for Christians, they don't have it for Jews, they don't have it for Hindus, they don't have it for Zoroastrians. There's also the Islamicizing of the public school curriculum, where they are instituting whole curriculums dedicated to Islam, but not to the 1,400 years of 270 million victims of jihadi wars, land appropriations, cultural annihilations, and enslavements. It's complete dawah. It's complete whitewashing. Now, I did fault your governor for this. Governor Perry instituted, along with Aga Khan, a complete, and I ran screenshots of all of the lessons. Don't listen to me, judge for yourself. That's another thing you're going to have to do. You're going to have to do your own homework, because you are being lied to. And I don't see curriculums in the public schools for Christians. I don't see curriculums in the public schools for Jews or for anybody else. And for those of you that have children in the school and who see this, and parents see it. Look, just 2 weeks ago, I was contacted by a parent and a columnist in the parents' school. They had a lesson. The lesson was, my name is Ahlima. And Ahlima is a young girl in Saudi Arabia, and the lesson is about how wonderful it is to be a young girl in Saudi Arabia. Hello? And how wonderful it is, polygamy is, and how wonderful it is to be the second wife, because the first wife, she has to do all the dinners, she has to go out socially, and Ahlima's not a social girl, and how great that she doesn't have to do it and she could be a stay-at-home wife. And she goes on to say that she loves the burqa, and she feels sorry for all those, quote, horribly, immodestly dressed Western women. And the last line of this lesson in the public school of Georgia is, how fortunate we are to have the Sharia. Now understand something. I know how I'm painted. I know I'm painted as a racist, Islamophobic, anti-Muslim bigot. I know that if you talk about this, even this much, the racist, Islamophobic, anti-Muslim bigot too. Why? Because this is the way they silence anybody that speaks to this issue. This is the way they enforce the blasphemy laws of the Sharia in this country. The media refuses to touch this subject. In Muslim countries, blasphemers, anyone who offends Islam, anyone who insults Islam, anyone who criticizes Islam, is put to death. Here in the West, Europe, Canada, and the US, your character is assassinated. You are demonized, you are marginalized, you are rendered radioactive. You are canceled at a small hotel in a small Texas town. Regularly. You must be aware of what is happening to you. Have any of you been to Europe lately? You want a cautionary tale? Look to Europe. This is not anti-Muslim. I speak for all human beings, including Muslims, especially Muslims who fled Sharia, who fled Muslim countries to escape the most oppressive and radical ideology on the face of the earth. Who speaks for them? Do you ever hear from them? Do you ever hear from them in the media? Does PBS ever do a special? When a young Christian convert out of Islam, teenage girl, left Islam and was afraid to tell her family, but was outed by her mosque, the Noor Mosque in Ohio, who was spying on her, told her parents that she had converted out of Islam, and her father threatened to kill her. So she ran away. And I remember when I first got the story, because some people in Ohio sent me the story, and they're like, it was from her friends, said, we're worried about her because she converted out of Islam. So I remember saying to Spencer, I said, you think she's alive? You think she got out? He said, they never get out. So imagine my joy, really, when she was found in Florida. And what ensued was this case to bring this girl back to this deadly household. She was painted as some radical, crazy Christian fundamentalist. It was disgusting. She was a young, sweet girl, virtuous, straight-A student. Meanwhile, millions of girls run away. They're doing drugs, they're selling their bodies. Nobody's looking for them. But this girl, this sweet little virgin, straight-A student, AP, the whole country's looking for her. Well, they dragged her back. They did drag her back to Florida. They did drag her back to Ohio. And mind you, while I was in Florida, I would see these buses. These bus ads, I'm sure you've seen them in Texas. Why Islam? Come to Islam. Proselytizing for Islam. And I saw these buses and I said, what about those that want to leave Islam? So I started an ad campaign. I took their ad and I said, leaving Islam? Is your family threatening you? Is there a fatwa on your head? Go to refugefromislam.com. Well, let me tell you. Yeah, that's right. They need help. They need help, and there's no network for them. They need safe houses. And it's not just like let's say a wife that's beaten needs to escape her husband. Here, many times they need to escape not just their families, but the mosque and the community. They need help. Nobody speaks for them. And when they do come out, like a Rifka Barry, they're completely destroyed in the media. Completely. Noni Darwish, a former Muslim. Wafa Sultan, a former Muslim. Ibn Warq, a former Muslim. Systematically destroyed. Their voices are never heard on college campuses. And of course that became a story too. The bus ads became a story because it was offensive to Muslims. I said, how is it offensive to Muslims? If I did an ad for housewives that were beaten, it's like all the husbands saying, hey, I'm offended. Am I wrong? When they say that I paint all Muslims with a broad brush, it's not true. First of all, excuse me, but I don't have to congratulate somebody for not wanting to kill me. I expect that. That's my bar. But clearly there's a problem with this ideology. There have been over 18,000 Islamic attacks since 9/11, each one with the imprimatur of a Muslim cleric, each one with a mosque behind it, but nobody will talk about that. The whole jihad against Israel. If you've read the Quran, you know it's Islamic Jew hatred. It's part of the DNA of Islam. And this whole narrative of demonizing this tiny little state, 9 miles at its wide, surrounded by these ginormous Muslim lands, and it's about land. You can't make these lies up. They're so big and impossible to believe. The very existence of Israel is an attack on Muslims. It is an attack on Islam. They will never let Israel exist, never let Israel live in peace, ever. They did it before 67. They did it before there was the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. There were Palestinian Muslims, there were Palestinian Jews living in Palestine, which is a word that the Romans conjured up to humiliate Israel, to humiliate the Jewish people. They changed it to Palestine. But the Mufti of Jerusalem, the leader of the Muslim world, was conducting pogroms against the Jewish people in 21, 29, 36, and then he hooked up with Hitler. And he lived in Berlin from 1941 to 1945. He raised Muslim armies in Bosnia and was responsible for the death of 400,000 women, Jewish women and children. Are your children taught about the role of Islam during the Holocaust and the Shoah? No, they are not. Certainly the Nazis have been demonized and vilified, so why do they get a free pass? Why is the history books whitewashed? Why? Because it's the Sharia. Do not offend Islam. Do not insult Islam. Even if it's the truth. My friend Geert Wilders was put on trial in the Netherlands for hate speech for his short film, Fitna, which was just a short documentary on the terrorist attack and what inspired them, 9/11, 3/11, 7/7. And he was on trial for hate speech. And the crime was, it doesn't matter. According to the Dutch criminal court, they said it doesn't matter if you're telling the truth. What matters is against the law. What law? The Sharia. Who's enforcing the Sharia? Is this accidental? It's not accidental. At the UN, the largest bloc of countries is the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, previously called the Organization of Islamic Conference. They are 56 countries plus the Palestinian Authority, 56 countries that vote as one bloc. And they have one objective, and that is to install the Sharia across the world. They are the modern-day universal caliphate. Wilders was put on trial because of the OIC mandates. They are very powerful in the UN, they are very powerful in the EU, and here you had the President of the United States, President Barack Hussein Obama, co-sponsoring a resolution at the UN to restrict free speech. It's unbelievable, and the media tells you nothing. The media hears no evil, sees no evil, speaks no evil. And how deeply have we been infiltrated? When you have a Pentagon, when you have a Department of Defense issue a final report on the Fort Hood jihadi, a devout Muslim who came out on grand rounds, made a PowerPoint presentation on grand rounds that's so succinct, I use it sometimes, who was wearing the garb of the Shaheed the morning of his jihad, who was screaming Allah Akbar, which means Allah is greater. Greater than what? Greater than your God. It's supremacist. Allah is greater. Was giving out Qurans the morning of his jihad, had Soldier of Allah on his business card, said Soldier of Allah, and nowhere in the DOD's report do they mention religious motivation. How long do you think that you're going to avoid the inevitable in this Operation Fetal Position? The Department of Justice is creating whole Muslim majority legislative districts for voting based on the racial paradigm they created for districting based on race. Do you know about that? The Department of Justice scuttled the prosecutions of the 300 groups named in the largest terrorist funding trial in our nation's history, the Holy Land trial. Groups, Muslim Brotherhood groups, who, according to an internal captured document, entered into that case. Their stated goal is to eliminate and destroy Western civilization from within and sabotage its miserable house so that Allah is victorious. Their stated goal, their words. And instead, the Department of Justice sues a school district who didn't allow a teacher, a new teacher, a probationary teacher, the only math lab teacher on their staff, to go on Hajj. She wanted to take a month off. They said, you can't. You're our only math lab teacher. Well, Holder sued the school. By the way, they settled. She gets $75K plus legal expenses. This is happening every day. This is happening every day. There's no hate here. Listen, I'm a lover. Why am I doing this? Why do I subject myself to this? I do it for art, for music, for love, and for freedom. Because I love this country. Because I grew up so completely and utterly free that when I was a kid, we used to say to each other, it's a free country, isn't it? It's a free country. You don't hear that anymore. Because it's inherently not. And I do see a leftist Islamic alliance. And clearly Muslims are welcome here. This idea of anti-Muslim backlash, another deception, another lie. According to the most recent stats from the FBI, anti-Muslim crime is down to its lowest levels since 9/11. Anti-Semitic crime is at historic worldwide levels. You ever hear about that? No. But they're constantly, every time there's a terrorist attack, what's the knee-jerk reaction? Anti-Muslim, we don't want an anti-Muslim backlash. No, people died. Can we talk about that, please? This is a war in a battle of information, and the media is complicit. The media is dangerous, and that's why each one of you is so critical. In this book, whatever your issue is, each one of you has a different issue. Some of you may not have any issue. That's okay too. But if you are fighting, for example, we fought the Ground Zero Mosque. We fought the Ground Zero Mosque, and we won. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And for those of you that say, well, you know, what's the big deal? Let me tell you what the big deal was. A 15-story mega mosque in a building that was destroyed in those attacks when the landing gear crashed through the roof is ground zero. That mega mosque, 15-story, by the name of Cordoba, another stab in the eye. Cordoba is iconic of Islamic conquest over the West. When in 7/11, Muslim armies invaded Spain, which was a collection of Christian kingdoms, and maybe it was a golden era for the Muslims, but it wasn't a golden era for the Christians and the Jews that lived under dimitude and were denied basic human rights, and was the site of the very first Jewish pogrom and the second Jewish pogrom. That's the name of the Ground Zero Mosque. And let me tell you something else. There has never been, in the history of Islam, a mosque of reconciliation and healing built on the site of a jihadi attack. But we have tens of thousands of examples of Islamic supremacist mosques, triumphal mosques built on the cherished sites of conquered lands. The most obvious, of course, is the first temple and the second temple, the Dome of the Rock, the Saint Sophia, the most exquisite and extraordinary church in history, is a mosque. That should be a church. Give that back. Give that back. And tens of thousands of Hindu temples, tens of thousands of Hindu temples. So you're going to tell me that a 15-story mega mosque looking down on the sacred ground that was covered in blood and ash is reconciliation and healing? And even if they didn't know, let's just say they know now. Just because you can build something doesn't mean you should. And even, look at the Pope. When they were going to build a church across from Auschwitz, and this caused an enormous amount of grief, the Pope withdrew the church. Did he have to? No. It's decency. It's human compassion. Where's the reciprocity? We're constantly being schooled about this hypersensitivity in the Muslim world. Do not offend Islam. Do not run the Danish cartoons. And no media ran those Danish cartoons. And then when South Park did an episode where they put Muhammad in a Huggy Bear costume because you can't show Muhammad, there was a fatwa on their head. And Comedy Central bleeped out the word Muhammad. Have we lost our collective minds? Gets better. So now a little girl in Seattle, young, probably liberal, who's a cartoonist, she loves the show, Comedy Central, loves the show South Park. She says, well, let's everybody draw Muhammad Day. I guess she was thinking, they can't kill us all. And within 24 hours, she's got a fatwa on her head. Now, she was clearly out of her element. She didn't know what she was doing, so she retracted. Never, ever retract. The smell of weakness is like blood to sharks. Not only did the FBI insist that she go into witness protection, this cartoonist had to give up her name, her job, her home, at her own expense. And I'm going to ask you, how many here have ever heard of Molly Norris? One hand. She should be the poster girl for free speech. She should be on the front page of every newspaper in America. And yet you haven't even heard of her. It's outrageous. It is outrageous. The reason why I wrote this book is because you can fight. If you look at the Ground Zero Mosque, you had the president supporting it. You not only had a mayor who vocally supported it in the scariest, most clueless way. If we don't build the mosque, the terrorists will win. What? It would have been Mecca on the Hudson. That's what it would have been, Mecca on the Hudson. You know, when they find these jackets, we've been getting, you know, the Hezbollah has been using the narco transit routes. Well, you should know the narco transit routes in Mexico. Why do you think you're seeing an increase in beheaded decapitations? Where do you think that's coming from? That's a religious ritual slaughter. You didn't have that in Mexico before. Even this latest attack, the Iranian attack on the Saudis and Israel. Interesting. That's a very interesting. Now, some people say, I don't understand that. Let me tell you what that was all about. Listen, the Islamic world, the Islamic supremacist world senses the vacuum. There's a vacuum. Because America's abdicated her role under this president. He's relinquishing American sovereignty. In my book, my first book, The Post-American Presidency, the Obama Administration's War on America, I outline his abdication of American hegemony. Evil loves a vacuum. So there's always this constant battle in Islam between the Shia and the Sunni. So the very idea that Iran, which is the leader of the Shia world, would execute the Saudi ambassador on American soil, their #1 patron and ally, and blow up the embassy, and of course the Jews too, because it's not a party if you don't kill the Jews, would be a huge message, a loud message to the world of supremacy and domination. And again, I applaud the thwarted attacks. How many attacks have we had in this country? And what bothers me is that just because they don't get it off doesn't mean it wasn't serious. There's some kind of a disconnect. There's some kind of a disconnect. We're constantly thwarting Islamic attacks, and you're not allowed to say the word jihad. If you ask anybody on the street, what are we doing, who are we fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, they can't answer you. It's very simple. It's jihad. That's it. It's not complicated. And Obama partnering with the Taliban, it's shocking. They're gassing girls' schools that we're building, gassing them. And where are the liberals? Where are the left? I mean, when I go to these anti-Israel rallies and I see Queers for Palestine, I got it. I am still stunned by that. You know what they do to queers in Palestine? They take a razor all around the face and they pull the face off. You know what they do to gays in Iran? They hang them in the public square on cherry pickers and leave them there to rot so that you get the message. And where's the left? Incredible to me that the left would shut down the liberals, which again, another word that's been completely inverted. Every word means the opposite of what it means. Occupation Chicago is holding a peaceful protest Okay? Peaceful protests where they're calling for the destruction of Israel, and Obama's pal Rashid Khalidi is speaking. A virulent, notorious Jew hater and inciter to genocide. And again, I have to say, you know, I don't get it. Why isn't America asking Obama why we're sending troops into Africa? Africa? They're slaughtering Christians in Egypt. By your hand. By your hand. Because Obama had invited the Muslim Brotherhood to his speech in Cairo in June of 2009, 5 months after he took office. They were outlawed. Sheikh Qaradawi was outlawed. There was a reason. I'm sorry, I don't think Mubarak was the bad guy that everyone painted him out to be. Perfect? Hardly. Am I going to shill for him? Not. But there are degrees. He was the only U.S. allied Muslim country to make a peace with Israel. And you may not have liked it, but it stuck. It stuck. When I was in Israel, dedicating a grove of trees to the victims of honor killings worldwide, they were shelling Israel from Egypt. First time in 30 years. Have you heard about that? The 30 Christians that were slaughtered last week, 300 hurt. Send some troops there. I don't believe in sending troops, by the way, unless it's a matter of national security. I don't know what we're doing in Africa. I don't know what we're doing in Libya. What are we doing in Libya? You know what Libya is now? Libya is falling into the hands of Al-Qaeda and jihadists. Is Gaddafi a good guy? Hell no. Is Al-Qaeda and jihad better? Worse. Worse. There are degrees. There are degrees of damage. There are degrees of evil. You explain to me his foreign policy. He sides with the enemy every time. And it's not just Obama. We have been infiltrated. When I hear that Heidi Teese in the audience is going to be running for office, I say, Baruch Hashem. This is what we need to do. You need to get politicians in office who get it. Ilario Pantano is running. I don't care if you don't live, he's in North Carolina. Send him money. He gets it. I have to tell you that there's no way you're going to escape this issue. And the more you avoid it, it's like you're supposed to play a tennis match and you don't show up. What do you think? The match didn't happen? No, you forfeited the game. That's what's happening. The fact that we protested that mosque and we would not let up. And how did we get the word out? How did I get 40,000 people to Ground Zero on September 11th? Let me tell you something. I've been writing that story since November 2010. You did it. You made that the #1 story of 2010 and the #1 international story of 2010. The media wouldn't touch that story, but everybody kept sending around these little stories. Hey, look at Ground Zero Mosque, what? And then my first rally, which I expected a couple hundred people, and we got like 8,000 people, somebody took a post of mine and just took the pictures. Didn't a link, text, nothing. Just the pictures of against the mosque. And that email went viral. I was getting my own pictures. Hey, did you see this? Like 20 times a day. And that's when the media woke up. So do not think for 1 second that what you do is not important. Do not believe for 1 second that the individual can't change the course of human events, because the individual can and does and will change the course of human events. This is a unique and brilliant and magnificent experiment, America, in human history. Oh, it really is. We're in it, so we can't really see the beauty of it. But America is the first moral government in the history of man based on individual rights. Yes, it deserves to be, yes. The first. And everything noble and brilliant and magnificent we achieved was a logical fidelity to that principle. That's what I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting against anything. I will oppose anyone that dares to take my freedom. I will not live for the sake of another man, and I will not ask another man to live for the sake of me. And it's important that you get involved in this fight. You say, how? Well, I will tell you how. I'm glad you asked me that question. When you wake up in the morning and you rub the sleep from your eyes, first thing you ask yourself, what am I going to do today to save the Republic? I don't care if it's just sending an article around. When you throw that little pebble in the water, you send it around, she sends it around, he sends it around. That's it. We are our own media. We are the media of one. And I know it's difficult, and I know it's a leapfrog, and I know, listen, you see the Muslim Brotherhood groups are actually getting the FBI to stop talking to anyone critical of Islam, no matter how heralded the scholar. From Ibn Waraq, to Robert Spencer. So what is this? And then in the schools, when your children are taught that curriculum, you are disarming the children. You are disarming law enforcement, and it all comes down to you. It doesn't have to be this way. It's certainly winnable. You will not like what comes after America. You won't. So I left some time for question and answers. There is so much more that I could tell you. I didn't even discuss the litigation jihad, like the $10 million lawsuit that was filed against me by Rifka Barry's parents' attorney. The Christian convert I told you about that escaped, I was a very big public advocate for her. $10 million lawsuit. And if David Yerushalmi and Robert Muse of the Robert Moore Law Center, send those guys a check, didn't represent me pro bono, over $350,000 in legal fees. He dropped the case because there was no case, and the judge, it was total freedom of speech. It was a total freedom of speech issue. I had filed a motion to dismiss. They never ruled on it. They never ruled on it. You must be proactive. Right now in the New York subway system, they are running ads that call for the end of U.S. aid to Israel. They're anti-Semitic ads. They're clearly anti-Semitic ads, as if the U.S. aid is somehow an impediment to peace. Again, the big, Hitler called it the big lie. Tell the big lie often enough, it becomes the truth. So I submitted my ads. This was my ad. It was one line of text. In any war between the civilized man and the savage, side with the civilized man. Support Israel. Defeat jihad. Yeah, they rejected my ads. I'm suing. That's true, I am, I'm suing. Yeah. So you need to understand you're not bad for loving good, because that's what it is. It's the hatred of the good for being the good. You're not bad for, do not let them shut you up. This is the key. The key is shutting people up. Read the Quran. And don't buy a whitewashed version. The closest version in English is Dawood, D-A-W-O-O-D, Penguin Books. Read it for yourself. But every time they cite Quranic chapter and verse, every time they're blowing themselves up, they're not all misunderstanders of Islam, I assure you. The reason why I wrote the book is you do need to know how to fight the fight. It's difficult. The media is your enemy, so when you're doing these things, if they talk to you outside, they're looking to get you to say one thing that they can parse, and then paint the whole, well, your Tea Party. Do I have to tell you? How they demeaned and lied and libeled and defamed this movement of righteous people? I know. I've spoken at enough Tea Parties to know that you will save America. Oh, yes. And how they're glamming up this movement in Wall Street. You should see. I live there. You should see. It is vile. The signs are vile. They're attacking the police. And then when the police go to push them back, that's the shot you see on the front page of the New York Times. Trust me on this. First of all, there have been 1,500 arrests, right? Trust me. It should be 10,000. They're not arresting them. They're getting away with such lawlessness. If any of you guys did 1/10 of what they were doing, you'd all be in jail. They're getting theirs. They really are. And now they're marauding mobs all over the city. They're going from Times Square. Next they're going to do, and it's interesting. Listen, I wasn't too unhappy because Zuccotti Park withdrew my permit for my Ground Zero Mosque rally on June 6th, D-Day. Yeah, they withdrew it. Now let me tell you, my people, they leave the place cleaner than when they got there. You could eat off the street. Okay? Now that same park that said, oh, well, no, the only reason why we're withdrawing it is because, we don't want to get involved in politics. That's where these dregs have set up home. And when I say dregs, they have the most beautiful, flower pots that are marble, destroyed. I mean, they destroyed this park. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So be careful. Be careful how, and that's why I want to say to Hyatt, be careful who you side with. because that's going to come back to bite you. The left, too. The left thinks, why does the left love this? I know why the left loves this. First, because the left always aligns itself with whatever totalitarian ideology there is of the day. If it wasn't Stalinism, it was communism. If it wasn't communism, it was the National Socialist Workers' Party. Who's the National Socialist Workers' Party? The Nazi Party. They say it was right wing. No, it wasn't. It was left. And now this. The Sharia is the ultimate weapon in which to control the people. The ultimate weapon. That's why I think they like it. The restriction of free speech, the left loves to shut us up. So they use that. They don't, believe me, they will be eaten alive. They have no idea. They think that I know what they're thinking. They think, look, we'll just use these. We'll use these tools. They are the ones that are being used. Just look at Europe. Europe has no-go zones. The police cannot enter. Firefighters cannot enter unless there's a staged incident where it's staged to lure the police in, attack the police, brutally attack the police. And that's how they get the message across. And if you go into these towns, if you drive through, it's all men on the street, women are covered from soup to nuts, like that Kim Kardashian wearing a burqa in Dubai. I ask you, no, let me tell you why it's so incredibly reprehensible. She's an Armenian. She's an Armenian. Now, the Mufti of Jerusalem, who I told you about, the leader of the Muslim world that, was responsible for the death of hundreds of thousands of Jews, you know where he cut his teeth? He was an officer in the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman army. He cut his teeth at the Armenian genocide, which resulted, as you know, in the death of 2 million Armenian Christians. So I urge you to do your homework. I urge you to talk to your kids. There are no young people here. They're like this mindless generation of bots. Not all, I see young here. Yeah, look, but 1 to 1,000. I know, I love you, because it takes incredible courage for you to be here. It takes incredible courage. It cannot be easy. And I think they're attracted to this movement because this is like their Woodstock. Like when I was a kid, we would go see Stevie Wonder. There were great, music festivals. What do they have? Lady Gaga? What do they have? What do they have? I have an ear for music. I mean, it's not that it's not a generational thing. There's no music. It's bum, 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 bum. I mean, there's no music. So this is like they're down there, they're making love, they're down there, they're smoking pot, and they're being used, ill-used. Now, of course, they want all college students to occupy college campuses, take over college campuses, and they have their list of demands. This is not going away. This is not going to be pretty. This is going to get ugly. This is Obama's way of shifting the blame, of incurring more debt than all the previous presidents combined, routing the American economy, shifting the blame to the businessman. Again, the big giant lie. Let's blame business for business. It's the demonization of the successful and the exaltation of failure. That's what you're witnessing here. It is the opposite of America. The opposite of America. This class warfare is ugly and divisive, and it's going to get uglier, and you're going to see that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you're going to see the aligning of Islamic groups with left-wing groups, and it's going to get very ugly. And I'm telling you, there's no such thing as being a passive bystander, because you will be collateral damage. And when you go to sleep at night, and you think about your children, okay, I put some money away for my children, I have an insurance policy. Oh no. Their future is so dim at this moment. I am not engaging in hyperbole. It's up to us. I want to thank you very much for coming out. I want to thank you very much for suffering the slings and arrows of the asshats outside. And I pray that you continue the fight.